Hey, it's Molly. Welcome back to my channel. I wanted to do a video for you discussing the period of time when we're going to have both Mercury and Mars in retrograde. And it will begin December 29th, 2022 and last until January 19th, 2023. And I wanted to discuss these energies as well as give you a heads up of what to look for in your chart. So let's start with the Mars retrograde that has been in effect since the end of October and lasts until January 13th, 2023. Now, this chart that we're looking at is for December 29th. December 29th, and we're going to look at how this Mars is retrograde in your chart, moving from 24 degrees of Gemini all the way back to 8 degrees of Gemini. So in that part of your chart where you have Gemini energy, from 24 degrees back to 8 degrees is where the Mars retrograde is occurring. Now look at how, as I said, this chart is for December 29th. The end of December until the middle of January, this Mars is only covering 2 degrees. Super slow Mars, super slow. And that's hard for Mars, especially in Gemini, which is the sprinter. Gemini excels at getting a lot done quickly, doing short tasks quickly, going through that to-do list, knocking things out. Well, from the end of December till the middle of January, that Mars is moving, he's barely moving. He's only going from 9 degrees back to 8 degrees, which is where he's at a standstill, where he will station direct at 8 degrees of Gemini. So super slow here. And this part of your chart, the Gemini part of your chart, has actually been experiencing retrograde since 2020, because this is also where we had a Venus retrograde in 2020. We had Mercury retrograde in 2021, and we also had the transiting North Node moving through Gemini here as well in 2020 and 2021. So we've really been reworking the Gemini areas of our charts. And now this Mars retrograde, moving so slowly, is really asking us to think it through. What are you reprioritizing, reconsidering, revamping, also giving new life to? Because of how Mars wants us to make things happen, go for it, really put energy into what we desire, there could be something here that you're realigning your desires, what you're looking for, what you want to create. And from the end of December, as I said, through most of January, really, Mars is only moving a few degrees. So there is a slowdown, and the higher expression of this in Gemini is to really think it through, to really apply greater thought processes, longer thought processes. Again, that Gemini energy wants to move quickly. And so you're like, I've got it. I got the answer. I'm going to do this. And then you go and do it. But now with this Mars retrograde moving so slowly, it's almost like you have an idea, you have a concept, you have a thought or something you want to say. Then maybe you're like, I'm going to give myself 4 days. I'm going to think this through over 4 days. So we're meant to become more mindful and to access the higher mind, to go into more of what you're really putting energy into. What is the intention for you, that driving intention? And this is where that slowdown, when you work with it, when you honor it, it can be very productive and less frustrating. So we would need to be watching our levels of impatience and frustration with this particular Mars. Again, only moving 2 degrees the end of December into January, but also giving new life to the Gemini areas of your chart that have already been experiencing this retrograde energy since 2020. So Mars is really wanting us to go slow, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's against how you normally proceed, but to really think it through and look at what does matter to me here in these Gemini areas of my chart. So this is where we make new decisions, new choices, especially once Mars stations direct. Now Mars stations direct January 13th and then takes time to get ramped up again and to accelerate again. It's kind of like this Mars is pulling into the gas station and has to make a full and complete stop. That happens at 8 degrees of Gemini, gets refueled up, and that takes as long as it takes. Then Mars can get back in the car and drive it forward. So just keep that in mind here as we close out 2022 and enter into 2023. And I'm calling this a super retrograde period because Mars in Gemini is ruled by Mercury. And oh yes, Mercury will also be experiencing a retrograde at the same time, beginning on December 29th, and that retrograde lasting until January 19th, where this Mercury begins retrograde at 24 degrees, travels back to 8 degrees of Capricorn in your chart. Now, this is also another area of your life that has had a lot of energy in recent years. You might recall that back in January 2020, we had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction at 22 and 23 degrees of Capricorn. We've also had our Venus retrograde covering this territory in late 2021 into 2022. So earlier this year, Venus had her retrograde in this part of your chart. And so this is our Capricorn energies that are getting us in alignment with our purpose, our mission, the work we're really supposed to do here in this lifetime. There's been a lot of energy in this part of your chart as well. Restructuring, redirecting, looking at, is this really what I want to do with my life? And this energy of Capricorn is the bigger picture of our lives, where you're really looking at things from a long-term perspective. So this particular Mercury retrograde, starting at 24 degrees, going back to 8 degrees, is also realigning you with those long-term goals, what your priorities are now, what really matters. But the energy in Capricorn is also cutting out. It's removals. It's, I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And look at how this Mercury, so the S there is for station retrograde at 24 degrees, is within 3 degrees of this Pluto that's now direct. So there's things you've been learning and transforming, even a sense of, I need to do this differently, or I'm ready for a new direction, a new start. But what is it? What does it look like? And how is it really going to show up in the real world? Because this strong Capricorn energy is always about, well, what is going to work in my life realistically? And how does the real world's energies actually work, right? How does it really show up? What do I have to do to get to where I want to go, to reach that next mountaintop, to obtain that next goal? And this is a Mercury retrograde covering, again, the territory and tracks that have been prominent since 2020. So there could be things that you're looking at again, you're reassessing, you're being very factual and looking at what is really going to stick, what is going to stick to the wall here. And maybe there's things you've been sampling or trying or working through. And this Mercury retrograde is also a reassessment of where you're going, what the long-term payoff is going to be. But ultimately, at a spiritual and energetic level, it's making sure that you're in alignment with who you really are at a soul level, your soul gifts, your spiritual mastery, what you're here to contribute to the world at large, how you're energetically designed to show up in your strength with your highest abilities. There is mastery in Capricorn. We've been learning about that. And then when we look at this energy, we can see, all right, job changes, career changes, new things that are being sorted out or figured out. This also, affects the job market, layoffs, cutbacks, things that companies are deciding. Capricorn is about those institutions, the bigger institutions, the corporations, the companies, CEOs, governments, the bigger structures in our society being revamped, as we've seen since 2020. And this Mercury retrograde is checking in on that. It's interesting how this Mercury retrograde is starting at 24 degrees. That's actually the same degree point that Mercury stationed direct earlier this year. Mercury had a previous retrograde that started in Aquarius and went back to 24 degrees of Capricorn where he stationed direct. So it's almost like there's something here where we have to go back and look at the missing pieces, the foundational elements. What do we have to go back and rework or reassess or have a bigger and more realistic understanding of in order to move forward? And so remember that this Mercury is the ruler of Mars and Gemini. So two parts of your chart are extra significant at this time as the year ends and a new year begins. Again, it's between 8 and 24 degrees of Gemini. So you could identify those houses in your chart. And then also 8 to 24 degrees of Capricorn. Isn't it fascinating that both planets go back to 8 degrees where they will then station direct? And both planets began their retrograde. Actually, Mars began his retrograde at 25 degrees of Gemini, and Mercury is doing it at 24 degrees of Capricorn. So the Gemini house or houses and the Capricorn house or houses in your chart are being revamped, reworked. You might even feel like you want to put up a closed for business sign. It's like, don't talk to me right now, not available, closed for the holidays, closed for the new year, because there's things happening within us that are personal. These are both personal planets. Mercury, personal planet, Mars, personal planet. Parts of our energies are being reconfigured and realigned, and we're going to need more space, more time, more room to process, think it through, reconsider. Also, there's something here too where maybe you want to just be in your mind and you want to think things through and you want that breathing room, like that time of like, let me just think this through. And I feel like that's going to be a really strong theme for each of us individually, but then at a collective level, you could feel it or sense it. Now, with every retrograde, there can be perceived inconveniences. Things that were like, oh, but I was planning on that, or oh, the details changed. With the super retrograde, with that Mars and Gemini being ruled by Mercury and Capricorn, there's even more that's going to be shifting and changing at this time. And as we follow the energy trail, I want to show you how, so this Mercury in Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, because Saturn rules Capricorn. And Saturn is now direct here at 22 degrees of Aquarius. This is a strong Saturn right now. Not only is he in a sign he co-rules, which is Aquarius, but he's direct, and he's in the third decan of Aquarius. So he has some things figured out. It's almost like this is the energy that's been showing you a future version of your life or wanting you to connect with something from a long-term perspective. This Saturn is now strong, solid, clear, and this is the energy of something crystallizing. So it could be that this area of your chart where Saturn has been retrograde this year and now direct has figured something out and has understood what needs to go, what doesn't work, what's no longer useful, what's no longer applicable. This Saturn holds the energy of a bigger vision and how to take concrete steps to manifest it and to create it. This is where our energy, time, and work is required. And so it feels like this is the Saturn that is really in charge of these retrogrades when we follow the energy trail. This is the Saturn that is in charge. This is the energy that actually holds the deciding factors. And it feels like this Saturn, so this Saturn is very strong and in charge. And Mercury and Mars are getting in alignment with what Saturn in Aquarius knows. There's a knowingness in Aquarius, and Saturn makes it real. I know this is true for me. I know I can do this in my life. I know that it is possible in this lifetime to create certain dreams, to follow certain goals, to make them a reality in my life. This is a determined Saturn in Aquarius who is in touch with everything that's possible and then wants to ground it into the earth, ground it in to your reality. And in order for that to happen, Mercury and Mars have to get in energetic alignment with that same intention, that same cause, that same direction. So if you can think of it in that way, that the Saturn energy is clear on where it's going. And if it's not clear, by the way, this is the Saturn that is still figuring it out for you. I realize that is an energy that can be different for everyone. But this Saturn is holding court because he rules. Look at all these planets here in Capricorn. And keep in mind that these retrogrades are occurring during Capricorn season. In fact, these retrogrades end before Aquarius season. So Capricorn season is the reworking season. It's the planning. It's our responsibilities. It's where we have to take stock of our choices. It's where the credit card bill shows up after the holidays. It's where we have to look at our taxes or our financial statements. It's where we have to get things in line, get it in order, be responsible, honor our commitments. And so that's a big theme here of Capricorn season, because not only does this Saturn rule Mercury retrograde, which, as I said, rules the Mars retrograde, but Saturn is the ruler of the Sun moving through Capricorn. So the energy trail leads to the Saturn in Aquarius, where we're really making some big, powerful changes in our lives, and we're understanding what no longer works. And again, I feel like with the super retrograde, there's things clearing out. You're like, yeah, I'm just done with that. I don't have energy for that anymore. It's not true for me. It's not what I want to be working on. I don't want energy towards that. I feel like this super retrograde time is when we're going to be having a lot of no's. No, thank you. Not for me. I'm going to pass. It's the reestablishment of new boundaries, new energetic boundaries in yourself and in your life. It's a sense of, this is not true for me anymore, but I'm ready for what is. I know that what I'm moving towards is waiting for me. I'm ready for it. I'm going to be ready for it. I'm going to do the necessary work to prepare for where this bigger vision is and for where I'm going next. So there's like a cleanup energy here. There's a getting rid of stuff energy. There's a no. Again, people changing their mind, changing their commitments, reevaluating what they want. So don't be afraid, or don't be surprised, I should say, if you get some no's, some no thank yous. I'm going to pass. It's not for me. There could be disappointment here. If you had your eyes set on something, there could be a sense of this is definitely what I want. And then you realize I was making a decision from my head and not from my heart. I was making a decision out of obligation instead of what I really desire. That's part of this energy right now, is that we're understanding the bigger picture of our gifts, of our life path, of what really matters for the long term. And you could have been on a certain trajectory or path, and you thought, this is it, this is the way. And then something stops you cold, and you're like, it's not at all. It's not at all what I want anymore. So keep in mind that is part of this energy that has not only a revamping, but redirection. redirections of a life path, redirections of bigger picture things. And again, for more specifics, you'd look at the Capricorn areas of your chart for what you are understanding about your mastery in this lifetime, and then looking at the Gemini areas of your chart for how your daily life is being restructured. So think of it as Gemini is the immediate environment that you're in. It's what's in front of you today, what you need to take care of. It's the things that are priorities that you got to get done, get it off your to-do list, move through it, take care of things, the emails and the text messages and the people and, kids at school and everything you're doing to travel around and get things done. All Gemini, immediate, what needs to be taken care of. It's a different energy than Capricorn, which is more serious and long-term focused. And it's getting these daily habits and routines in alignment with the long term. And making sure too that you're directing energy towards what really matters and even what's considered more, let's say, serious. But the Capricorn energy wants maturity. It's like, is this really paying off for you? Is this really working for you in the Gemini areas of your chart? Or is it just like a bunch of ideas, a bunch of short-term things and doesn't go anywhere? Like, has this been wasted effort? Not that anything's ever wasted in energetic terms. It's more about understanding this isn't really serving me anymore. This is too much. I have too much on my plate. I'm exhausted. I'm distracted. It's almost like, you're trying to juggle a lot and it doesn't bring about anything. It doesn't lead anywhere. And Capricorn asks the questions of, what is this bringing? What is this bringing you closer towards? Is this really working for you? Does this really matter? Because sometimes this Capricorn energy will see the Gemini energy as frivolous and youthful and just wasting time or wasting energy. So we're looking at more of this Capricorn perspective of our lives, which we've been in, as I said, for a while now, for a number of years. We've had the very serious reassessment of our energies through Capricorn, but through this particular Capricorn season, there's even more that we are looking at for long-term gain, and also more that we're determining, no thank you, I don't want this anymore, it's not for me. So I'm calling this a super retrograde because of how these energies are interacting and working together, and ultimately how they're also, as I said, working with themes that have been strong since 2020. Since 2020, when we had Venus retrograde and the Mercury retrograde and then Gemini North Node, your Gemini areas of your chart have been very active with retrogrades. And then the same is true for Capricorn. So how fascinating that this is happening together at the same time, simultaneously, and there could be things that you're saying, okay, I tried that, don't like it anymore. I thought this was the way, it's not. So be gentle on yourself, be compassionate, and see yourself through the eyes of spirit, which is, again, nothing's ever wasted. There's things we have to sample at times. There's things we just have to try, right? You just have to go down the path and see if it's the thing, and if it's not the thing, like, all right, I gave it a whirl and it's not for me. You could also need to be gentle on yourself if you've invested a lot in something or somewhere and that investment hasn't paid off. Capricorn wants ROI. Capricorn wants something to come through to show up, something of quality and quantity as well, the best possible manifestations. And you could be assessing, okay, this isn't working anymore. And that can bring up disappointment, let down. And you could even be hard on yourself. Oh, I just invested in this. Oh, I put all this energy into this. Or it isn't what I thought it would be. Whatever those messages might be, there's something here about, give yourself a break. Let yourself off the hook. There's things we only learn by doing them. It's by doing it that you understand. It's by going down the path. It's by spending 3 years at a company that you understand if it's really the right company or it's really the right job for you. It's only through those real world experiences that you start to really know what you want. And that's part of Capricorn. So we've got some super retrogrades here, but I hope this gives you a good heads up on the energies, on perhaps what to expect. Be more patient with yourself, be more patient with others. Give yourself some compassion. Understand that in the spiritual world, no one's keeping score. There is no score. There is no assessment. There's no right or wrong. There's just you living your energy in the world. And this would be a time to fine-tune that, to fine-tune your energy, your objectives, your goals, your understanding, and to just own it as like, yeah, this is where I'm at now, and I'm going to move ahead and make this year awesome. So again, a significant period here that kicks off and begins strongly the end of December and goes into most of January. And do keep in mind that I have the 2023 Soul Growth Astrology program available for you, so you can see the main astrology of the year ahead, including the other retrogrades like the upcoming Venus retrograde that interact with the nodes of fate. That's a big deal. Plus, we have 4 eclipses in 4 different astrology signs in 2023, not to mention both Saturn and Pluto changing signs in March. There's a lot. In fact, it's the biggest astrology since 2020. So I'll put the link below. Check that out. But also just be aware that during the super retrogrades, we are rewiring, recalibrating, reintegrating, reprioritizing, and there's beautiful gifts that come from that too. So thank you for joining me. I hope that this was useful and that you got some good insights about these energies. And I'll be back soon with another video for you here. So take good care and have a beautiful week ahead.